It's the Rock and Roll Whiskey Show. Now here's your host, Mark Donner.
A few days ago, I had the chance to see Steve Hackett, guitarist, best known for his contributions to Genesis between 1970 and 77, the period of the band known for their progressive rock music and theatrical artistic stage shows, of course led by vocalist Peter Gabriel at the time. Now, this is the second time I've gotten to see Hackett and his band. His tours, known as Genesis Revisited, feature a first half made up of all his solo music. Not all of his solo music, but 7 or 8 songs from his illustrious solo career. The second half of his shows feature music of his era in Genesis. In 2022, I went up to Minneapolis and saw him performing the Seconds Out live album. Now, that was an album that had come out shortly after Phil Collins had moved from the just playing the drums to being the drummer and vocalist in the band. It's a great live album, and it was a great performance of that live album. Last Sunday in Des Moines, Iowa, Hackett and his amazing band performed 1973's record Foxtrot from start to finish, as well as a couple other Genesis favorites in their encore. It was amazing. Hackett's solo music was tremendous and mesmerizing, but it was the Genesis portion that made me feel like I was witnessing something really pretty special and unique. And now what about Steve Hackett? Now, after seeing him last year and again this year, I believe, and I don't think I'm alone in this, that he's among the most underappreciated and greatest guitarists in rock. He's amazing, and I suspect most people have never heard of him, even though he does sell pretty well when he tours, and he tours quite extensively. If you do know him, you may know the story that Hackett was using innovative guitar techniques like the two-handed tapping technique made famous by Eddie Van Halen. Well, Hackett was doing quite a few years before that. He seems to be really inventive, and he loves the music that he makes. He even quipped at the beginning of the show that I saw this week that he kind of mainly toured, so he could stand in the middle of his amazing band and watch them play. They're all amazing. Hackett loves music. He clearly is happy to be up there performing, and I'm really glad I got to see him twice. He's in his 70s. Hopefully I'll get to see him again. But it was really something special to see them perform Foxtrot from start to finish. And Foxtrot's what we're going to talk about today. Now, released in 1972, it's Genesis' 4th studio album, and it was a pivotal record in their career, showcasing the band's signature blend of rock, classical, and contemporary music and theatrical musical elements, complex arrangements, poetic lyrics. Now, the lineup for Genesis at the time of Foxtrot included Peter Gabriel on lead vocals and flute, Tony Banks on keyboards, Mike Rutherford on bass and guitar, Phil Collins on drums and backing vocals, and then Steve Hackett on guitars. And I think Foxtrot's probably the most celebrated record of the Gabriel era, mainly because of the 23-minute epic Supper's Ready, which we'll talk about in a little while. Supper's not quite ready yet, but it's a great album from start to finish, full of engaging moments and fantastic musicianship. And let's talk about it now. So track 1 opens with Watcher of the Skies. This opening track is famous for its Mellotron introduction. And the Mellotron's an interesting keyboard-type instrument that makes a real distinct sound. You hear it in a lot of prog rock, particularly from the 70s. Even the Beatles experimented with it just a little bit towards the end of their career. But Tony Banks plays that Mellotron introduction, and it gives the song an otherworldly atmosphere. The lyrics, inspired by sci-fi, reflect the loneliness of an alien observer looking upon a deserted Earth. Musically, it features dynamic shifts and really powerful rhythm section highlighting Collins' drumming and Rutherford's bass. The live version of the song featured Gabriel in a really crazy costume, which included like a batwing headdress and eye makeup that was kind of glowing, creating a real otherworldly appearance. And actually, if you see Genesis Revisited with Hackett, singer Nad Sylvan plays tribute to that in the live show. He doesn't really wear the wings, I don't think, from what I remembered, but he stands above the stage in costume with glowing red eyes and a telescope gazing out over the crowd as he performs the song. It's really kind of cool. But Watcher of the Skies is a great song. Next track is Timetable, which is a quieter and more reflective piece. It showcases the band's ability to create a medieval atmosphere with its piano-driven melody and poetic lyrics that talk about the rise and fall of civilizations, from what I can gather. Now, while most of the music of this era of Genesis feels somewhat out of time for me, this one does feel very 1970s to me, but with a tinge of the 1270s too. It's kind of walking both lines of 70s rock and medieval music. That's kind of fun. Next song, Get 'Em Out by Friday. This is a character-driven piece with a strong narrative, which is kind of typical for Gabriel at this time. It discusses corporate greed and the dehumanization of urban development. Some of these themes could be used in music in 2023, for better or for worse. Gabriel famously performed different characters in the song, different vocal styles, and different kind of funny voices during his live shows and on this record. It's kind of a good song. Can Utility and the Coastliners is the next track. And it's inspired by the legend of, I don't know that I'm pronouncing this right, but King Canute, which was an early king of England and Scandinavia, I guess. And it's going to cover some of those legends. And Hackett's guitar work is very notable here with delicate and aggressive textures and just beautiful playing. And that closes out side one. Side two then opens up with a short classical guitar piece by Hackett called Horizon. It's an instrumental that serves as an kind of a gentle interlude on the album, showcasing Hackett's skill in finger picking and his ability to convey emotion through that instrument. Played it live last week and it was beautiful, and it serves as a nice gentle opening of side B on this record, and it's indeed the only other music on this side besides The Amazing Supper's Ready. But it's always good to have a drink before supper, don't you think? So let's do that. Before we top up is ready, we're going to get out a bottle of whiskey. And it's going to be a whiskey that's worthy of the Watcher of the Skies. So let's look to the north. Let's look to the Highlands of Scotland. I'm talking about Glenmorangie Distillery, a Highland distillery in the northern part of Scotland. And they're extraordinarily tall stills. I don't have their height here in front of me, but that's part of their marketing. They have the tallest stills in Scotland. I don't know if that includes the higher elevation or not, but we're going to look at the main whiskey of their line called the original. It's Glenmorangie 10-year. And this is a Highland single malt that has complexity that I think complements Foxtrot pretty well. It's balanced. It's elegant. Glenmorangie 10 is known for that. And it's got a flavor profile that has some citrus and some vanilla, some floral notes, maybe a little peach. It's just got a real nice, not intense and not too complex. It's just really versatile. It's just an accessible single malt. Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about some Islay whiskeys with their smokiness. Those don't really appeal to everybody. Glenmorangie has enough complexity to be a good whiskey for Scotch enthusiasts, but also something that's probably kind of approachable for people who are a little new to drinking Scotch or only drink whiskey from time to time. As I said, Glenmorangie boasts the tallest stills in Scotland. What does that mean? I don't know. Here's what they say. Here's what I can gather from what I've read about it and from what I know of the distillation process. Some of this is probably a little exaggerated, but the taller still would mean a longer path for the alcohol vapors to travel during distillation. It could allow for greater condensation and reflux of the heavier elements and impurities that could maybe make it into the final product of a still that doesn't have that height. Now remember, we're using pot stills for the most part in Scotland, so it's a little different. In the US, you use a lot of the column stills where a lot of those impurities get out of the whiskey before it makes it into the final product. So the taller still here kind of helps to do that. So also more interaction of the vapor with copper, which helps to purify the spirit more. Only the lightest vapors kind of make it to the top, resulting in a smoother and lighter spirit. The heavier alcohols and oils, which can contribute to a harsher taste, condense earlier and fall back into the still to be redistilled. That's why they say Glenmorangie's able to boast such a delicate flavor profile. And taller stills kind of result in a slower distillation just because has farther to travel to get out. The vapor does. And they say that gives the distiller more control over the process, which can be used to enhance certain flavor profiles. So is all that true? I don't know, but that's what they claim, and it all sounds okay to me. So all I know that the final product, Glenmorangie 10 and the other whiskeys in their line are really pretty rich and engaging and quite accessible to most whiskey drinkers, both in taste and also availability. It's one that you'll find just about anywhere in any bar that's got even a little single malt collection. In those ways, it's kind of like the listening experience for Foxtrot. It's got some nuance. It's got a lot of artistic license in it, but it's also pretty accessible, very listenable, even to somebody who's not really that accustomed to prog rock. There's some great hooks, beautiful melodies, And who doesn't like listening to Peter Gabriel? So I think Glenmorangie 10 is a really good whiskey to drink with Foxtrot. So now that we've had our whiskey, it's time for supper. And this 23-minute epic Supper's Ready is considered to be one of Genesis's masterpieces and a defining moment of progressive rock in general. And now I'm not as versed in prog rock as some are, but I haven't really found anything in the genre that truly tops it for me. I think it's an incredible song. And the song's divided into multiple sections, each one telling a different part of a larger story that touches on themes of love, war, good versus evil, redemption. Gabriel's theatrical flair's on full display. He adopts various characters and narratives throughout, while the band navigates through diverse musical landscapes. I went through and put together an outline of all the sections of Supper's Ready and what they're called and kind of what they're about and interesting parts and moments throughout, but I can't be bothered to read it. It's lengthy. So time for our disembodied AI voice to help me out with that. Oh, voice.
Supper's Ready, a masterpiece by Genesis, is divided into 7 distinct sections, each contributing to the song's intricate narrative and musical journey. Lover's Leap. This section opens the song with a gentle acoustic setting featuring Peter Gabriel's evocative vocals. It introduces the narrative theme of 2 lovers in a surreal, changing landscape. The lyrics are filled with symbolic imagery, setting the tone for the rest of the epic. The guaranteed eternal sanctuary man. The music becomes more dynamic and complex here, with a shift to a fuller band sound. This part introduces the character of the sanctuary man, a messianic figure, and explores themes of salvation and spiritual conflict. Ikhnaton and Itzakon and their band of merry men. Here, the song takes a turn towards a more aggressive and discordant sound. The lyrics reference historical figures Ikhnaton, Akhenaton, and Itzakon, a corruption of Isaac, blending historical and biblical imagery to evoke themes of revolution and change. How Dare I Be So Beautiful? A reflective and quieter interlude, this section acts as a bridge, both musically and lyrically. It contemplates beauty and its transient nature, serving as a calm before the storm of the following segments. Willow Farm. This is the most avant-garde and whimsical part of the song, marked by abrupt changes in tempo and style. It's a surreal, almost psychedelic journey through a bizarre, dreamlike landscape, filled with strange imagery and unexpected turns. Apocalypse in 9/8, co-starring the delicious talents of Gabble Ratchet. Featuring a driving 9/8 rhythm, this section is one of the most intense and complex. It showcases Tony Banks's powerful keyboard work and Phil Collins's dynamic drumming. The apocalyptic theme is at its most explicit here, with a sense of impending climax. As sure as eggs is eggs, aching men's feet. The epic concludes with this uplifting and triumphant finale. The music resolves into a more harmonious and melodic form, suggesting rebirth and renewal. The lyrics, full of hope and resolution, bring closure to the journey, both musically and narratively. Each section of Supper's Ready is a piece of a larger puzzle, contributing to an overarching story and musical experience that's both complex and rewarding.
The piece is also a technical showcase for every band member with intricate time signatures, extended instrumental passages, and the whole band were really at their best during this piece. Poignant lyrics, but listenable melodies, intense varied rhythms. The epic is a common thing in progressive rock, but not all epics are equal. While there are truly a lot of epic tracks to be found in prog, there are also a lot of record side filling pieces. That means a piece of music that kind of takes up the whole side of a record. But oftentimes those contain a lot of filler, and you'll lose the listener, or they kind of lose attention, and maybe they'll get it back later, maybe they won't. Happens to me a lot with prog, but that's not the case with Supper's Ready. The song's listenable from start to finish, and it was made that way by the incredible vocals of Gabriel and the musicianship of the whole band. Is it my favorite Genesis song? I don't think so. Fourth and Fifth from the next album, Selling England by the Pound. I think that's my favorite Genesis song. It's certainly my favorite epic, and I'm not afraid to say that almost brought me to tears when I saw Hackett perform it live this last time. Foxtrot was met with critical acclaim, and it's often cited as one of the best progressive albums of all time. It solidified Genesis as a leading band in the genre and set the stage for their subsequent success over the years. Even losing Hackett and Gabriel along the way, it was a good starting point for what came next for the band. And it stands as a testament to their innovative spirit during these early years, combining their musical prowess and talent with storytelling that would become a hallmark of Genesis' legacy. At this point in time, Genesis is no longer really a going concern, not in a real way where they're making new music and touring. Of course, their music's going to live on forever, but the band Genesis, which for most of the last couple decades has featured Collins, Rutherford, and Banks, playing mostly the music in the post-Gabriel era, with a couple exceptions. Well, Collins can't really perform that way anymore, and the band is no longer touring anymore. They had a big world tour a couple of years ago, and that seems to be it from the core Genesis. Now, where's Peter Gabriel? He's out there making new music. He had a new record out last year, and he's done a world tour this past year, but you're not going to catch any Genesis music on that show. So if you are looking to see the closest thing you can get to the classic era of Genesis with the real stage show, amazing musicians, you got to check out Steve Hackett and Genesis Revisited if they come to your town or a town near your town. I mean, I traveled 6 hours and 2.5 hours to see both the shows I did, and both of them were worth it. And I think you'll find it worth it too. So pour yourself a dram of Glenmorangie 10 or your favorite scotch and have a listen to Foxtrot.
Another episode of the Rock and Roll Whiskey Show will be here soon. Be sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, or whatever player you prefer. You can get show notes as well as tasting notes for the featured music and whiskey at rockandrollreclaimed.com. You can also get links to Mark's social media channels at the website. The Rock and Roll Whiskey Show is a production of Rock and Roll Reclaimed. Goodbye. Dad to damn. To dum to mum diddly washing, you're all full of ball.